Thank you for making the time for us tonight. I'm Yvonne Okwara Matole. The big story tonight, Justice Luka Kimaru has ordered the police to release lawyer Miguna Miguna immediately. This is after days of police playing hide and seek with the courts over Miguna's release. Lawyer Miguna Miguna, the self-proclaimed general of NRM, had been taken to Kajiado Law Courts today, where a magistrate declined to have Miguna take plea in his court before he was presented in the High Court following such orders by Justice Luka Kimaru. Until mid-morning today, the whereabouts of the lawyer remained a mystery to many, including his own lawyers. The hide-and-seek began on Friday when Miguna was rearrested moments after the High Court freed him on a 50,000 shillings bail. Since then, he has not been able to meet his lawyers. The lawyers on Saturday claimed Miguna was also denied the right to seek medical attention after an asthmatic attack. Miguna is the latest victim of the state's blatant disregard of court orders, an offence that has become synonymous with the Jubilee administration. Among the charges that Miguna is facing is the dreaded one of treason. He's accused of organising, consenting and administering an oath to Raila Odinga on the 30th of January at Uhuru Park. Now, the back and forth between the police and the courts has put the executive and the judiciary in a warpath again. Did Chief Justice David Maraga foresee this state of affairs? Listen to what he said soon after being sworn in 2016.
When the government has a good case, there is no reason whatsoever why we should not rule in its favor. But when the government has a bad case, or it bungles in its prosecution or defense, we should not be expected to rule in its favor.
Tonight on the show, I'll be speaking to lawyer Edwin Sifuna, who is a part of the legal team of Miguna Miguna, as well as Otsienu Namwaya, who is a researcher at Human Rights Watch. But before that, our lead reporter, Sophia Wanuna, is on standby in the Central Business District. Sophia, good evening. It's been a rough time for Miguna Miguna. Bring us up to date with just the intrigues of today alone.
Good evening, Yvonne. The big question tonight is, where is Miguna Miguna? Quite a day. It has been an eventful one, especially with a battery of lawyers that we saw in court, over 20 of them earlier this morning. Remember, an order was issued by Judge Kimaru requiring that the Director of Criminal Investigations, as well as the Inspector General of Police, physically present Miguna Miguna this morning because the same orders previously had not been adhered to. However, this morning, they did not show up, these officials. They, however, sent other officials from their offices, a move that was strongly opposed by counsel for Miguna Miguna, saying that, in fact, at the end of the day, these officials, DCI and IG, were showing contempt, and that the judge should find them in contempt. And as these proceedings were going on here in Nairobi, the Milimani Law Courts, further intrigues developed, with reports emerging that, in fact, Miguna Miguna had been presented in a court in Kajiado, a magistrate's court, and that he had been charged with 3 offenses, administering an oath, being part of an illegal assembly, as well as being head of an illegal entity, that's NRM. As you mentioned there earlier, Miguna did not take plea on this matter. And even the counsel here in Milimani Law Courts, on finding out about the events and developments there, then asked the judge to be able to make an order that finds that such proceedings in a court that's lower of a matter that's already seized by the High Court should not in any way be taking place. So a lot we have witnessed today, with now after that, again, reports that Miguna had been transported to Nairobi, to the Milimani Law Courts, to finally be presented before the judge. And in the afternoon session, because, again, there was a grace period given to still present him in the afternoon at 3 p.m., but during those proceedings, he was not presented. And as the judge was making ruling on some of the applications made by counsel for Miguna, including to find that his fundamental rights had been adversely infringed on because of not being able to access his counsel throughout this time, not being able to see his friends or family and others. However, the judge finding that in that particular case, that is a suit that Counsel or Miguna should pursue through a different court. But in this particular instance, saying that this afternoon that he would stay in court up until Miguna is actually presented. So as he was in court with all of these lawyers and quite a number of supporters, I remember at some instance he had to literally request counsel to ask the supporters to come down and to remember this is a court of law, not a rally, if you like. So heated tensions there. And so I understand right now, I just spoke to his lawyer, Harvey Nelson, who is at the Milimani Law Court, and he tells me the judge any moment from now will be issuing an order to find the IG and the DCI in contempt of court. And what else he may be ruling and finding is that Miguna should not be charged in the Republic of Kenya on any criminal charge up until the time and when he's actually presented before Judge Kimaru. So we'll wait to see if in fact, this is the order that will be issued any moment from now, because we understand the lawyers are still there, the judge is still there, and still the whereabouts of Miguna are unknown, Yvonne. And I spoke earlier on, just about an hour or so, to Senior Counsel Ahmed Nasser Abdullahi, just picking his brain on what he makes of is justice under siege. In some of the things he told me was he doesn't think the disregard of court orders necessarily tags the situation as being that dire, that it happens every so often, and a lot more we got to discuss. So let's take a look. Thank you very much, Senior Counsel Ahmed Nasser Abdullahi, for making time for the big story. What do you make of the state of the nation? A lot has been said, criticism against the government, the security agencies. You've seen the media shut down, the arrests, the disregard of court orders. Define and break down for me what you see the state of the nation now.
I mean, I think the country is doing well. I mean, there are certain incidents that have occurred in the last 10 days. Most of them are necessary in my view. Most of them avoidable. But I think, I mean, Kenyans have witnessed what occurred. But, you know, I mean, if you look at, you know, the arrest of Miguna or those guys who were involved in the swearing in of Raila, or, you know, the court orders, or the shutting of the media and the eventual reopening. I mean, it has been an eventful, you know, 10 days for the country. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And when you look at that, do you define the state of the nation as strong, weak, or, you know, average, especially in as far as we have President Kenyatta coming into the second term, and this is a man you have defended 3 of presidential petitions. So in terms of that leadership and the rule of law and obedience to the same?
I mean, you know, there are 2 forces that are facing in this country, you know, an opposition force, you know, that wants to make mischief, you know, every time they have an opportunity. I mean, you know, when you want to swear yourself in for something that doesn't exist, you know, you bring all your supporters, you know, you paralyze the country. That's one force, you know. But the government, you know, should have handled better, in my view, because the mere fact that Raila has sworn himself for something that doesn't exist, something that's child play, in my view, and I think many people have said so, I think the government should have just ignored it, you know. I mean, let him swear himself for whatever positions he wants, whether it's the people's president, whether it's a prime minister, people's prime minister, whether it is anything. That's his choice, you know. It is, you know, it's a game he's playing, you know. When someone is playing a game, why do you want to bother as long as he's not, you know, infringing on anybody else's position? Yeah. And I think the government has really missed the opportunity to show that it is bigger than him, you know, that it has better space than him. It should have completely ignored, you know, that people have discussed this, in my view, was so unfortunate, because it was such a trivial matter, really. It's so trivial. It's so unnecessary. Yeah. Yes.
And talk to me about, we had the Attorney General of the Republic, who's the chief government advisor, talking about high treason, don't do the oathing ceremony. If you do, you'll be arrested. So do you think he's misadvising the president and has got it all wrong?
I mean, it is his job to advise, and I mean, he's a formidable lawyer by any standard. But my view is that what Raila did is not treason. I mean, I can swear myself, if I wanted today, as the people's prime minister. It's so, because it's a fictional, you know. If you want to swear yourself for a position that's fictional, you can't be charged with treason. If Raila was swearing himself as the president of the Republic of Kenya and commander-in-chief of the armed forces, that will be treason. But, you know, if he creates a fictional title like he did, the People's Prime Minister.
The president.
Yes, the People's President, you know. It's a child's play, you know. It shows how trivial he has become. So why do you want, what's there to charge him? And I think that's why they're not arresting him. If he will have sworn himself as the President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief, he will have been in cell today, I can assure you.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they're arresting people around him. We've seen Miguna, we've seen the charges against him and the treatment. Even now as we speak, he's yet to be brought to court, despite the judge indicating that he be brought and that he had actually been seen at the Presence and Milmani Law Court. TJ Kajwang, we saw the arrest, Aladwa as well. So all this arrest around the people who were with him in this ceremony because of attending and being part of this illegal, as has been defined by the state. I
really feel sorry for Miguna. You know, he's the last person that should be arrested. He's so harmless. He's so irrelevant. I mean, he's not a player in Kenyan politics. Of course, he abuses a lot and talks loud. But Miguna is so insignificant in Kenyan politics. I really don't know the motive why they arrested him or kept him in a cell for all this long. I mean, this is a guy who contested an election, got 9,000 votes, you know. And why do you arrest him? What has he done wrong? I mean, probably there's something we don't know, but I don't think he was, because he was, you know, during that ceremony that he was arrested, because it's such an unfortunate thing, you know. I feel really sorry for him because he's so harmless, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, that's what you say. I don't know that he is or is not. But the president, you have represented him. He clearly trusts you. If you had an occasion with him right now, what would you speak to him as a member of the bar, as a senior counsel, and if he asked for your advice on this?
No, you know, the president has been, you know, he's been elected twice, you know, overwhelmingly. I mean, it's unfortunate that Raila becomes, you know, created a lot of nuisance during that event. But the president has a mandate from Kenya. He has set his agenda. I think there are 4 pillars for his agenda. They are very important agenda for this country, you know, healthy, infrastructure, housing, all those things. I think the government, the president should go back to work and deliver for the Republic of, you know, Kenya and its citizens, because that's why they have shown such a trust twice, overwhelmingly. He should ignore these shenanigans, you know, this childish play, you know, this Raila and his group can swear themselves as many times as they want. But the president really should, he should have he should have his eyes on the real prize, which is to deliver for the Kenyan people. He should start, you know, he formed his cabinet. The cabinet is now fully constituted. Let him deliver what Kenyans told him to deliver when they gave him their votes, you know.
So you think he's losing focus?
Not really, but I think this is such a waste of time, you know. Why do you want to, if a guy is swearing himself to become a people's president, you know, something that does not exist, why should the government of Kenya spend 1 minute addressing that issue? Why should the government of Kenya arrest people like Miguna? Why? Because we have more pressing issues that this country should address. And I think it's important that the president and his team should ignore these charlatans, in my view, stop these shenanigans, this waste of time, and concentrate on the core functions of government.
Yeah, the blatant disregard of court orders. Even now, 2 media houses still yet to be reopened. In the Miguna case, we have seen several orders, again, contempt of court, even the IG and the DCI. Where are we heading? Is the judiciary under siege?
No, that's wrong. You know, court orders are there to be obeyed, in my view. Court orders are not made in vain. When a court order is made, it must be obeyed. But, you know, court orders are addressed to certain specific persons, either it's a minister or a PS or a commission. If court orders are disobeyed, there are consequences, and I think it's for the parties really to follow that consequences. The fact that, you know, court orders have been disobeyed does not mean that the country's come to stand still, or the judiciary under siege, or the rule of law.
You don't think it's that serious?
No, it is serious, but it's not the end of the world, I'm saying. There are consequences. Breaking court order happens every day, but there are consequences for breaking, you know. People are supposed to obey, and they must obey. But when a party does not obey a court order, there are consequences. You follow that. But let us not exaggerate. Let's not say because a certain order has been disobeyed, the rule of law has gone to the dogs, or the constitution has been buried, or the constitution has been completely disregarded.
But no. It's not happened on one occasion, senior counsel. It has happened over and over again. And also, this is the government. It's not just an individual. They're confused about what the law is or what it's not.
I agree with you. the point I'm making is let's not lose perspective, I mean, court orders are very important. As a lawyer, I mean, it goes against the grain. I've said many times that court orders must be obeyed because if they are not obeyed, my function, my role as a lawyer becomes superfluous. But I just want us not to lose that perspective that because court orders have not been obeyed, Kenya has gone to the dogs. No, it hasn't.
So the judiciary is not under siege. In your view, the CJ should not come out in any way to speak about the independence and the respect of the rule of law of one arm of the government?
No. It is none of the business of the Chief Justice to comment when a court order has been disobeyed. It's not his business. His business is as a president of the Supreme Court.
One arm of government appears to be undermining another arm.
No, it's not. It's not like that. It's not. When a court order is disobeyed, the judge who gave that order has full jurisdiction. He's the one seized of the matter. So what he can do is that if an appropriate application is brought and they say that X or Y has disobeyed this order, it's for that judge to punish.
Right.
The Chief Justice has no role to say that court orders should be. It is the judge who gives the orders that enforce that order.
All right. Before we wrap this up, the suspension of passports of some individuals, Jimmy Wanjigi, David Ndii, and others, what do you make of that? Because you tweeted about it not being law as we stand.
No, these are some of the silly mistakes the government makes. I mean, the government has no powers in law to revoke the passport of any person. The right to a passport is a constitutional right. It's a very basic, fundamental right. If I want to leave this country, I should be allowed to travel. And the courts have endlessly ruled. And I think there's a 3-judge bench of a client of mine. I wasn't doing the case. My learned friend Ngati did it. Deepak Kamani versus the Attorney General. It's a 3-judge bench decision that held that the right to a passport is a fundamental right. So, why should these are the mistakes they make, because tomorrow those guys will go to court and the court will quash it. So why do you make a decision that has no basis in law? Yeah. Elementary mistakes they're making, which they should avoid.
So for a government that you have so passionately defended to ensure they're in power, you feel they've lost focus very early on in their second term. Would you say that?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the president has 5 years. And I am confident he will deliver for the people. I mean, that is why Kenyans have shown so much trust. But in my view, these small things, this is snipping, these irritants, this opposition making trouble. Those are small things they should ignore. They should focus on the bigger picture. Let Raila show himself as a prime minister of the people or the attorney general of the people if he wants. Or even the mayor of he can have as many titles as he wants. The important thing is that Kenyans have refused to elect him president, so many times, and he knows it. But if he wants to be what he wants to be, that is, something very personal.
How easy or difficult, finally, is it to charge a person with treason? Because we saw earlier when the Attorney General was talking about high treason, as he described it, opposition NASA said it's impossible almost.
No, it's very easy. If Raila will have sworn himself as president of the Republic of Kenya and commander-in-chief, he would have been convicted within few days. The evidence was there. Everybody saw it. He has sworn himself. What other evidence do you need? You need probably 1 or 2 people. It's an open and shut case.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated. All the best.
Sophia Wanuna, our lead reporter, speaking to Senior Counsel Ahmed Nasser Abdullahi a short while ago here on The Big Story. And of course, it is all about the events of the 30th of January that have led up to what we have been seeing within the courts and the corridors of justice with respect to what is happening with lawyer Miguna Miguna. Today, the question we're asking on The Big Story is the government using the charge of treason to stifle dissent, or did NASA, NRM, in fact engage in subversive activities on the 30th of January when they chose to swear Raila in as the people's president? But let's get back to present-day events, which is what just puts perspective to this conversation about the charge of treason in this country. Let's recap for you the charges that Miguna Miguna, advocate lawyer, is facing this evening. He is facing 3 counts. The first one is being present and consenting to the administration of an oath to commit a capital offense, namely treason contrary to Section 59A of the Penal Code. The second count is taking part in an unlawful assembly contrary to Section 5 of the Public Order Act, Cap 56. And there's a third count, engaging in organized activity. All right, and this is by professing to be a member of the now proscribed National Resistance Movement. So let's then have some perspective as to what the law really does say about treason in this country. Well, the law against this can be found in Penal Code Cap 63, that's Article 4.1. which says, and you can follow with me, any person who, owing allegiance to the Republic in Kenya or elsewhere, compasses, imagines, invents, devises, or intends to the deposing by unlawful means of the president from his position as president, or from the style, honor, and name of the head of state and commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Republic, is guilty of the offense of treason. Now, if you check Article 40, the same article, Part 3, any person who's guilty of the offense of treason shall be sentenced to death. Now, here's an interesting one, and this is Article 45 of the same Penal Code, Cap 63. Any person charged with treason or any such felonies who is in Kenya may, whether or not the offense was committed in the country, be taken in custody to any place in Kenya and may be proceeded against, charged, tried, and punished in any place in Kenya as if the offense had been committed within the borders and for all purposes incidental to or consequential on the trial or punishment of the offense shall be deemed to have been committed in Kenya. Article 59 says any person who is present, and this would be the part that might refer to Miguna, or any other that attended that, any person who is present at and consents to the administering of any oath purporting to bind the person who takes it to commit any offense is guilty of a felony and is liable to imprisonment for life. Now, if you're wondering, whether this is the first time, of course, everybody remembers Hezekiah Ochuka as being one of the last people to have been executed in this country, and that was for the offense of treason following that attempted coup in 1982. Let's just take you down memory lane as to past treason charges and how they fared. Raila Odinga was charged alongside journalist Otieno Makonyango and university lecturer Alfred Vincent Otieno. A few days after the 1982 coup, after several months, the state withdrew the treason charges and he was held in detention without trial for a number of years. There was a number of others who were with him. Those are the 12 plotters of the failed coup were executed at Committee Maximum Security Prison. Some of them include Corporal Bramwell Njeremani, who was the first soldier to hang over the 82 coup. He was represented by Gitobo Imanyara in court. I will just go through a number of others that were involved and charged with treason. Some of the charges didn't stick. Shemo Chwotho was one of them. He was a third-year student at the time. He was arrested by Special Branch. He was charged with participating in an illegal demo. Oginga Ogego was jailed for 10 years for sedition. The now vice chair of the Jubilee Party, David Murathe, was also one of those caught up during the 1982 coup. He was a third-year student at the time. He was arrested 3 days after. He was taken to court for sedition and participating in an illegal demo. He spent 6 months in custody, and the charges were later dropped. Now, here's an interesting one. What you see at the bottom of your screen, which is what happened in 2001. Minor Commander, who was the first person to be charged with treason after a multi-party came into being in 1992. Now, he was charged for comments that he made at a rally at Kinoru Stadium in Meru in April of 2001. Those remarks, according to the police at the time, were claimed to be either treason or incitement. And I believe that exact statement was believed to have been that he's said to have uttered that President Moi should be, quote, shot at night if he tried to extend the life of Parliament. So the treason count was later substituted for a lesser charge. So as you can see, these are just some of the many people who have either been charged with treason, the charges have been dropped, or in certain cases, the charges were held, and we know of 12 persons that have been executed in the country for this. So today, the conversation we're having in this country and on the show tonight, is it dissent or is it treason? Is it civil disobedience or is it treason, going by the events surrounding Miguna's arrest? I believe we have time before we take a break just to get a quick reaction from my guest tonight. That is Otieno Namwaya, who's a researcher at Human Rights Watch, and Edwin Sifuna, who is part of the legal team of lawyer Miguna. Edwin Sifuna, I will start with you. Before we get into the debate about treason in this country, can you tell us anything more about your client, Miguna, tonight? Where is he?
Well, Yvonne, I wish I could answer that question, but we were quite dismayed as the legal team because we sat in court this afternoon and were assured that the police had in fact brought our client to the precincts of a court in Milimani, only for him to disappear into thin air as if he were an apparition. What has happened is that I left court at about 7:15. At that particular point in time, even Justice Kimaru, who had been very gracious indeed to wait out the DCI and the police to present Miguna in court, also gave up the wait. I mean, we left the court at 7:15 when he directed that we give this a shot, another shot tomorrow, and that the police produce Miguna before the court tomorrow at 11 a.m. So
all right.
as I speak here, I don't know where Miguna is.
Otieno, what do you make of the events? We know the Human Rights Watch has released a statement specifically regarding the case of Miguna.
Come again, I didn't get that.
The question now is to Otieno Namwaya from the Human Rights Watch.
Okay.
Otieno, can you hear me? Your reaction to the events of today. We know you've released a statement on the same, asking for his release.
Yes, Yvonne, there are several issues there. The first one is, of course, the issue of ignoring court orders, which has not happened once or twice, but several times. And it did not start with the Miguna case. I think even in the case of the media houses that had been shut down, there's a case of court orders having been ignored. And I think that is a very dangerous trend that the Kenyan government is setting, if at all it really believes in the rule of law. Then the second issue is the issue of due process, because remember that if the government actually believes that there is treason, I think it is irrelevant for us to be asking ourselves here whether it is treason or whatever. I think the key thing would be to present the person in court in an acceptable way and then allow the law to run its course. At the end of the day, we'll know what the courts will be declaring. And if there is a disagreement, then there should be an option for appeal. But from the way the government is behaving since Friday up to today, I think we are now going into the 6th day, it's not clear exactly what the government is trying to achieve with this. The third issue that concerns us really, and which I'm surprised that people actually seem to take it for granted, is the fact that the government, and this is one of the charges facing Miguna, has declared the National Resistance Movement as a criminal organization. I know for many people that may look like it's normal, but for us it is not, because as far as we are concerned, the National Resistance Movement is part of an opposition party that is duly recognized in the country. For as long as there is no evidence that this movement has actually engaged in criminal activities or acts of violence, it amounts to actually criminalizing political opposition in the country.
Okay, all right. And that's a good place to take a break. We have lots more to talk about when we return. Remember, the question I'm asking you tonight as you watch the show is whether this is dissent or treason, civil disobedience or treason. Did NASA actually engage in subversive activities on the 30th of January, or is the government using treason as an excuse to stifle dissent? Please let me know. Dissent, rather. Please let me know. The hashtag is The Big Story at KTN News, at Yvonne Okwara. We are back with Edwin Sifuna and Otieno Namwaya after this break.